large part of the homesteading life is learning how to deal with failures. Not everything you put your hand to is going to work out the way you expected. But you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get busy looking for solutions. We've had a few failures out in the garden already this year, and we've talked a little bit about those. We're going to show you today exactly what's been going on since we last visited the garden. Let you get a good peek at how we're dealing with the situation and see where things still may need some adjustment. We got to get the day started like any other. We've got chores that need to be done. We've got chickens that need to be fed. Standing out here pouring all this feed out of these bags reminds me that all of this grew in somebody else's garden. There's nothing in this bucket, nothing in this bag that I couldn't grow myself. Makes me wonder why we're bothering to buy all this feed if I can grow it right here on the property. And it's these failures that we're trying to overcome here at the Return Homestead. The very idea or notion that we have to go down to a feed store in order to get proper food for a chicken. Chickens are wild animals. They eat insects and grains that they find out in the grass. I don't need anything special to feed these chickens. Not only do they convince me I have to use their feed, but then they sell it to me in these plastic bags that we then have to get rid of. So we got into town, we got all the feed we needed, at least for the next couple of weeks. The chickens will be well taken care of. We can get busy focusing on the garden today. I'm not sure exactly what we'll get up to out here, but Marty and I have been working on nothing but the garden for quite some time. You can see our full truckload of compost is almost gone. So we've used up almost everything we bought. Just a tiny little bit of fertility left here that we could spread around. Marty's using quite a bit of this up in front of the house right now. So we're trying to get a flower garden and some other beds going in up there. We still have some plans. We may want to add a few beds out here on the hillside as you approach the garden. This is one of the last beds that we put in, and it hasn't been on any videos yet. We've only recently gotten some plants to come up in here. And these are sunchokes, also known as Jerusalem artichokes. This is kind of a unique crop. You don't see people growing these often. They do have some unique carbohydrate compounds in them that can make you a little gassy, so some people don't appreciate them. So we wanted to get some of these going. Even if we don't eat them, they could be a primary food source for the chickens. So that's one of the ways we might go about eliminating the need to go out and buy that feed that we're feeding to the chickens right now. So we still got the silkies running around loose. What you working on in here, hon?
Well, apparently the silkies think it's time for food because Willie's over here begging for food. No, I got nothing in my hand, buddy. They like to eat out of the garden, but I hesitate to feed them because so far they're leaving the garden alone. But I have got them trained, so when I come out now, I usually have a pocket full of sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds, and they know to come get them for me. So they think I'm out here to feed them, but I'm not. What I'm actually working on is the slow recovery of our garden. You guys, it is recovering quite a bit. Compost was robbing all of our plants with nitrogen. Also, they were burning the plants. But as you can see, these are peppers that I already had counted as dead. They're coming back. So when I put them in the ground, we had a rare freeze that froze them back. Here's a good example of that. And they're coming up from the roots, so don't pull them out. I still have a lot of beets in here that are still burned, but as you can see, things are starting to grow. I have a squash here. I have a watermelon coming up here. So this bed is making a slower recovery because it was one of the last beds we put in. This bed was one of the first beds we put in. Same plant, planted the same time. The recovery has been awesome. We got snow peas. We don't have enough to do anything with those, so we kind of graze as we're out here in the garden. My celery is coming back. As you can see, this one looks awesome. I've got tomatoes coming in here, and honestly, I overplant everything, and this year I'm super glad that I did, because some things made it, some things didn't. This is one of our original tomatoes here.
So we're into mid-June now, and what are you expecting the garden to be like? Should you be harvesting anything at this point?
Yes. So my onions should have already come up and bulbed, and we should be drying those out now. They have bulbs on them, but they're very small. I'm trying to see if there's one over there that you can see above the surface. But they're very small. These onions are starting to look really nice. I have a lot of brassicas in here. We do have grasshoppers eating on our brassicas. As you can see on this kale, that is damaged, but not from a worm. We've seen a few cabbage moths, but not a lot. And the chickens don't care if the grasshoppers have gotten it. Willie, where are you? Here you go, buddy.
So this hasn't been an early success, this garden. It looks nice. We're really happy with these new beds, and being able to sit down on the bed in order to do the work is awesome, but having no plants to work on has been a little bit, well, it's been depressing. It's been hard to watch these things struggle to grow and watch them turn yellow, and some of them just really refuse to grow at all. In the end, we had to add nitrogen. There was no other way to get these plants to take off and get busy doing what they needed to do, so we have added some nitrogen into the mix to try to get things growing again. And you can see the difference it's made just in the last couple of weeks. If you're wondering what we're talking about, we did a video just a couple of weeks back explaining some hot compost issues we were having in the garden. I'll go ahead and post that up here for you.
So Mike was talking about a problem with the plants lacking nitrogen. These are pickling cucumbers. Come in close here, hon, you'll see. So you see the yellow browning at the end of this cucumber that we have? That's lack of nitrogen or lack of water. Now, we don't have lack of water. We've had days and days of rain. So I know by these big wood chips that we have in here that they're robbing my plants of nitrogen. And this is why we're getting what is known on a tomato as blossom end rot. It's not called that on a cucumber, but our cucumbers are going to be a little sad at first until we get some nitrogen to them. We're not going to see a huge harvest of strawberries this year. They're just getting started, but we do get a few berries, and when we do, we just come pop them off and we eat them. So I've thrown diatomaceous earth all over the plants, especially where the berries are, to try to deter the bugs without putting a poison out here where my chickens are. So we are getting some. My beans that were so lacking in nitrogen, these are navy beans. And so the plants, like I showed you in one of our last videos, have fruit on them. These you're going to leave on the bean plant until it turns a straw color. You want them to dry out completely, so we're not going to pick these. We might end up staking them depending on how much fruit they get in them, but they've all started producing. We've got beans coming on most every plant, so we'll get some harvest. Our harvest this year is going to be a bit disappointing from some of our last gardens that we had. But as we've stated in past videos, our Nevada garden also suffered greatly because we were using hot horse manure. So you can garden with what you have. You just got to be a little patient and let it do its thing. Here is one of the plants that I had over here in a pot. And it got so pot bound. This is a marshmallow. Marshmallow is part of the okra family. The flower is very similar. The roots are what you harvest for making tinctures and so on for respiratory issues. It's also the same stuff they used to make marshmallows out of. This here, a lot of people call a weed. This is narrow leaf plantain, and because this is my herb garden, I'm letting it grow. I I make a salve out of this. I got stung by a wasp at the very beginning of spring. I put my salve on that sting and it took the sting out almost instantly. We've got lettuce growing here, and lettuce bolts a lot here. So it's under the eaves, and I'm trying to grow it even though it's extremely hot out here right now. I've got all kinds of squash growing around the borders. We'll let it spill out. This is sage. It's a perennial. It comes back every year. Oregano, we're going to try and bring that back every year, but it gets pretty cold here, so I don't know. I've also got basil growing in here all over. This is a licorice basil, and then some rosemary. These are my perennial flowers. They will soon be transplanted out into the front flower garden, which we haven't even put on a video yet. This is German chamomile, and up front is Roman chamomile. Now the Roman has a sweeter taste. It is a perennial. It reseeds itself very easily, and I use it in my tea. This here is caraway. And then I have, oh, what do we have here? That's a surprise. I don't know what that is.
We got so many herbs growing back here in the herb
I
garden.
really
We're
do.
not sure what that one even is.
This is a purple basil. It actually needs harvest. And when you harvest basil, you want to find where two leaves come together, like here. Here's a good example. You'd want to cut it off right here. So what that does is it forces the plant to put more branches out. This is melons, and I believe these are Kajari melons. They're a little round melon with green stripes. They almost are like Tigger the Tiger orange. We have got a fungus on our beans. We're going to hit this with some neem oil, and what happens is you'll get a brown with a yellow around it, and it eventually starts taking your plants. So we've got to treat this, but we've got a lot of rain coming right now, and I'm going to have to hold off because the treatment won't do it any good. Now, we try to garden organically, so we try to use things that won't hurt us. The last thing we want to do is put poison on our food and then eat it. So we use neem oil, we use diatomaceous earth, we use BT. That's another good one, especially if you have anything that's a worm. The chickens, as I've mentioned, love sunflowers, and these are mammoths. I do have some smaller sunflowers in here, and they are loving this. The other thing with sunflowers, they help to treat your soil. So they dig deep, they bring up all the nutrients, and they loosen your soil. And since we have such heavy clay, if you want to condition your soil, first plant sunflowers.
So we've also planted some of our blackberries here in the garden. We wanted to make sure we had good control over these. We made a video about moving these things. When we first got here to the property, they were just out on the front fence line. But our neighbors were seen spraying herbicides out there. So we wanted to make sure we rescued the blackberries before the neighbors were able to overspray and end up damaging them. So we got them moved here into the garden. We've got 7 or 8 of them that are actually growing quite nicely. We're not looking for any fruit off of these plants this year. We're really just looking to see them start to produce long canes. Once we get those canes up, we'll bend them over. They'll go down into the dirt, make new roots, and that's how we'll spread the plants out so that next year this is going to be a very full row of blackberries. So this is nice, healthy growth on this plant. You can see the fresh, clean leaves. There's no damage on them, which means the plant is very happy. That's been another one of the problems that we've noticed, is that we are seeing lots of fungal damage and some insect damage. In fact, we've got some aphids that are attacking some of the plants and just turning the leaves into what looks like lace. So it's almost like the lace-winged beetles. So the leaves are getting damaged, but it's only because the plant's not healthy. If we have healthy plants, then we get rid of those bugs. They simply go away. They don't feed on the healthy plants. They only feed on the unhealthy ones. So That's why we're adding nitrogen, to try to encourage the plants to get growing and become healthy enough that they can protect themselves from the predators. That way we don't have to use insecticides in the garden. And then right next to the blackberries, we've got some peppers and tomatoes. Now we've got a mix of peppers on this row. I'm not even really sure. I remember we put in the habaneros down here on the end. And we've got green bell peppers and yellow bell peppers and red bell peppers, and they're just kind of mixed in here together. And we're starting to get some results here from the peppers. What we're looking at here is a California Wonder. So this should get to be a relatively large bell pepper. The plant's still suffering a little bit, so we've still got some fungal damage, it looks like, on the leaves. So we will need to get out here with some neem oil to help the plant make it. Meantime, I'm just going to take these damaged leaves off of here.
Now you want to remove those leaves away from the plant because the fungus can spread.
And our tomatoes are looking nice. We're having to start tying these tomatoes up, so they are making connection with the trellis now. In fact, it looks like we need to spend a little bit of time tying these things up, cutting off some of the bottom branches. Ideally, what we want is to keep the branches off of the ground. We don't want anything touching the ground, especially with tomatoes. As it rains, we want them as far away from the dirt as possible. So we're going to be cutting these things up, getting them to lift up onto the trellis. But I see we've got flowers in here, which means we're going to get some production, and I even see some small tomatoes growing in here.
Oh, we've got tomatoes on the vine?
We do. We've got one just over here in front of you.
Sweet. Over here we have a few more peppers. Like I said, our big thing is to have cowboy candy. And all these peppers are starting to flower. We do have them in compost and native soil, or clay in our case, and they're doing quite well. Once we got the rabbits to get out, we were doing good.
And then the last of our actual row crops is the green beans. And this is actually, I don't know, 3 different plantings of green beans, I think. So they all eventually did come up. So we've just got green beans for days. We've got enough of the compost in there that I think we're just going to leave them. We're not going to try to thin these things out. We're just going to let them grow up. They're looking a lot better since they got a little bit of nitrogen. It's actually looking like they could use a little more. We'll be stingy about adding things like nitrogen to the plants. It's difficult sometimes to find a good source for that. Blood meal. You can also use fish emulsion. There's lots of ways to add nitrogen without doing anything damaging to the plants or the soil.
Now these are called half runners, and they do half run. As you can see here, I have a trindle coming off. It will eventually wrap itself around the trellis, and it will reach the top of this trellis, which is almost 5 foot.
And then one of the last few things that we had been working on when we did the last talk about the compost in the garden, we were just starting to take a look at our sweet potatoes. And so we had just gotten these sweet potato slips from one of the local Amish nurseries, and we had just put them in the ground. These were feeling a little weak and flimsy, but we were pretty sure they would make a come around, and they have. They are actually very stiff. You can feel the woodiness of the stem now. So they're just really starting to grow and spread out. We're going to have to actually lift them out of the bed and make sure that they don't make connection to the soil again. And that's the one thing you want to pay attention to on sweet potatoes, is they're going to want a vine. And when they start to send the vines out, wherever that vine touches the ground, it will send down roots. And if it sends down roots, it's going to spring up a new plant. And that means it's just going to keep producing foliage. If you ever want to get sweet potatoes to grow underground, you have got to stop it from connecting.
Here's our biggest failure of the year.
Yeah, not everything has to be a success the first time through.
This is our corn bed. Unfortunately, the red-winged blackbirds like the corn just as much as we did. We have a few. There's a corn stalk right there.
We may see a ear or two of corn come up out of here. And yeah, it's not really a critical issue. This was just really an experiment. We wanted to see how far we could push this native soil, especially with all of the grass that's in it. How hard is it going to be for us to remove that grass in order to be able to create plots like this? Because there's some things that we do need to grow, especially for like feeding the chickens, that's going to require a larger area and some sort of monocultured approach. If we're going to grow sorghum or milo, For the chickens, we're going to need a large, like 100 by 100 square foot plot in order to grow that in. Most of the corn is going to grow best in a large plot where the corn can tightly fit together, so that as the wind blows the pollen in, it has the ability to fall down to the corn silks and actually fertilize the corn. And this experiment didn't go so good. What'll probably happen is this fall I'll come back in here, we'll run the tiller back over it again, and then we'll probably cover crop it.
And our blueberries, they're doing fabulous. But some of our plants are actually producing quite a bit of fruit. So this one's got a lot of fruit on it. None of it's ripe yet. We didn't expect to get a harvest from this at all. We do have there's fruit on every plant. So we might get a small bowl full of blueberries this year.
And then last but not least, one of our big money crops, so to speak, is the potatoes. These potatoes have only been dressed one time. So I've come in and cut the lower branches off of the stems and added another 1.5 to 2 inches of compost on top of these. They're a little bit burnt again from the addition of the fresh compost, but they seem to be recovering well and they're growing nicely. We are going to wait probably another week and a half. These will be up a little bit taller and we'll come back in with some straw and top dress these one last time. Probably the most exciting thing that I see as we're walking around the garden right now is I see mushrooms popping up all over the place. That tells me that this compost is continuing to break down. We are going to get better results out of it as the season goes along. So this small little bit of progress that we see in the garden is going to be magnified over the next few weeks and months. We should see a relatively good harvest. I'm excited and anticipating a good harvest before the end of the year. And as we finish off that harvest and look into next year, and we try to figure out what we need to grow, we're going to be paying even more attention to what we're growing for the other people that live here on the property with us, meaning the animals. So there's no reason why we couldn't grow everything that the chickens need, so that we no longer have to go out to the feed store to bring in bags of feed like you saw me doing this morning. We're going to have to make some adjustments to the way we think about feeding chickens. It wasn't always done this way. The world has convinced us now that the only way to grow chickens and the only way to get eggs is to use a commercial feed, and that's just not true. People have been raising chickens and producing eggs for centuries before there was any kind of a commercial feed production. One of the advantages we have on this property that other properties may not have is we've got the pond down there, and that pond can be used in a number of different ways. I've looked at different types of fish and minnows that could be raised in that pond. Doesn't quite make enough protein that way in order to feed the chickens, but the duckweed that grows on there in the summertime, that is an interesting possibility. So we're going to take a look at that over the coming weeks to figure out how we're going to use that duckweed to see if we can use it as at least a supplement, but possibly even a primary food source for the chickens. So we're going to continue to focus our efforts not only on feeding ourselves, but on feeding the animals that we bring on the property. We're also looking forward to the livestock that we could bring in that can eat all of this grass that I'm currently cutting. Cutting grass is a waste of time and a waste of money. It is excellent feed for ruminant animals, and we just need to figure out how to get those ruminants here onto the property. So stick around with us. Watch over the next few months to see how that progresses. As you watch our videos, I will from time to time mention that there's more information to be had in this video than what you're seeing here on YouTube. Anytime I do that, I'll also tell you about the sister video that's running on Rumble. Rumble is a different platform where you can also get the same video content, but we'll add additional information that's simply not playing well here on YouTube.
We want to thank you for coming along with us today, sharing in our victories and our disasters. We do have a lot of promise, Willie. We do have a lot of promise in this garden, and it will come. You just got to be patient. You can't give up if it doesn't work the first time. So this is not our first garden that we've started from scratch. This is our third. And we know that we're going to have disappointments, but we also know we're going to have success. It just takes patience. Make sure when you first start your homestead or your new garden that you give it some time. You're going to make mistakes, you're going to have some success, but you're definitely going to have some failures, as you've seen that we have had. But we don't give up. We just keep going. And we want you to keep going too. This is the first tour, full garden tour on the new property. And we are still working out all the problems that we have with soil, compost, the climate, everything else. And you'll have to watch the sun, see where the sun comes up, see where it goes down, and plant accordingly. Don't just throw stuff in the ground. I hope you enjoyed this. It's like 86% humidity out here, and we still have peppers and tomatoes that have to be tied up, and I have a glass of iced tea calling to me. So until we see you next time, thank you, God bless, and bye-bye.